Hello there and welcome. This one is called Flower of Life Communities. So let me take you back to a retreat which I was hosting over in Ireland, and the spirit of the acacia plant spoke to me and gave me a very specific message. During that weekend I found myself drawing and drawing and drawing in the attempt to convey what I was being shown onto paper to share with people. So let's just take half a step backwards. Flower of Life communities are based upon sacred geometry, and the sacred geometry I'm referring to is called the Flower of Life. And here are the two books which I recommend to anyone if you want to explore this in great detail. The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life by John Melchizedek, volumes 1 and 2. These books make it very clear that there are historical evidences in terms of sculptures and artwork all over the world which shows this shape. And when you go really into the detail of the sacred geometry, which one certainly does when one explores the world with the plants and the plant medicines, then what becomes completely obvious is that the universe, everything that we know and that we don't know, is constructed according to the fundamental principles of sacred geometry. And I'm going to just throw a tiny little clue out there for the scientifically minded amongst you, which is that it begins with a seed of life. And we can see the seed of life in science if you look at the hydrogen atom. A hydrogen atom consists of one proton with one electron orbiting it in a sphere of possibility, what they call an electron shell. That represents the seed of life. So when you look at this image, what you can see is you can see a shape which is actually very familiar for some people who have drawn them in childhood. And you get the compass out and the pencil and you draw a circle and you divide it using the radius of the compass and you create that particular shape. That shape is what the Flower of Life is. So what I was shown that if people were to live in sacred geometry, this would have a fundamentally transforming effect upon their consciousness and bring us into total alignment with infinite love is the only truth, everything else is illusion. So let's look at this drawing then. This was my third attempt. The first two were really too poor to show anybody. So what you notice is you've got the circle which surrounds the entire shape, and right at the very bottom of the picture in the centre you've got the opening, and the opening leads you into the centre. And the centre, there is a community building, and the space is marked out by the circle of trees which are around it, and you can notice that there are entryways into each of the petals of the Flower of Life. So that's what we've got. We've literally got a shape, the circle, and the circle is consisting of trees, which provides its own integrity. It gives the space its boundary, if you like, and within those boundaries there are these 6 petals, and we actually travel through the first petal in order to reach the centre. So that was my first attempt to show you this. Now I'm going to show you my second attempt. So this shows you the same thing. So what we have, which makes this so key, is each family unit has their own petal. So one petal represents one family unit. The circle right in the middle of the petal represents the dwelling place for the people, and the central space represents a community space with a community building right in the centre and other buildings within that space. And as I mentioned before, the entryway to the whole Flower of Life community unit is this pathway which I've shown, and I've shown places where vehicles could be parked, avenues of trees going up there. And what I want you to grasp is how all the little shapes are plants. So what you've got is you've got each petal having its own sense of sovereignty and integrity, where that family unit is living, and rather than in a conventional situation where they're living on their own, they're not living on their own, they're living relatively close to other people, but they've got their own sense of protection, seclusion, their own sense of identity because of the way that the plants and the trees have been arranged. So let me show you one of these petals in a little bit more detail, what it could look like. So here it is. So you've got the entry arch which is leading you in there, and you have to reach this through the centre, as you might have noticed in the other picture, and then there's the path which goes to the person or the family's dwelling place. You've got plots of vegetables and fruits, you've got space which they can be growing whatever they wish in, and open space for playing and for doing what they like. There's an orchard space up at the upper end of the picture. So if we go back to this one again, what I want now to explain to you is how the magic comes into it. So now enters the next personage into our story. This is Vladimir Maigret, who wrote a series of books, and the title of the first one is Anastasia. And here's book 3 called The Space of Love. So what this extraordinary man has done is he's done the economic maths to make the whole thing work, which is so essential. So it's based upon the Russian experience of what is called DACA, which is that in Russia, in the communist era, many people were given the opportunity to take on 500 square meters of land and to use those to create a space they could live in the summer if they wanted to, like a little cabin or a shack, and to grow their own food. And what was discovered is that 500 meters squared is not sufficient to sustain a family group. It simply isn't enough. But with that starting point, a whole load of extra work was done, and this work resulted in the understanding that should a family group have 1 hectare of land, this is entirely sufficient to support that family for all their needs for food, fruit, vegetables, any animals that they wish to keep, and also enough land to provide firewood for their needs for cooking and for heating, and enough wood for them to provide for all their building needs. And on top of that, enough land to grow a cash crop which they can then use to either trade or barter or sell to create a little bit of extra income, so they can afford to obtain the things which they can't produce for themselves. So this is what really makes it so miraculous, is that this is what a hectare enables a family group to do. And I keep using this word family group. It could be a mum, a dad and a couple of children. It could be 2 people living together as close friends. It could be whatever partnership feels appropriate for the people concerned. And the idea, when you look back at the plan, is that what you've got these spaces in between the units which are going to be full of the larger plants, like the big trees and other plants for biofuel, for example. And something that's incredibly exciting is that we now have in Britain a wonderful company called E333, and what they're doing is they're literally harvesting grass from areas which are not used for agriculture for food purposes, and they're putting it into a methane digestion and creating natural gas. So what I want you to do is to allow your imagination to take wings with this model, because what we have is we have these individual units of 1 hectare which gives that family group all that they require to sustain themselves. And as well as that, we have this central communal space, and this is what starts to make it really exciting. So let's have a look at the next picture. And here it is. I've just focused in on the centre of the Flower of Life model, and you can see the different trees growing in the circle. And this communal space would also be a hectare too. And right in the centre of that communal space there is going to be the community building. And because I'm going on the Flower of Life model, where the number 6 becomes incredibly important, and a little digression. In the world of the tarot, the number 6 represents total, complete balance and harmony between the two extremes of human existence, severity and mercy, and between spirit and matter, nature and the earth. This is what the 6 represents. So I'm showing deliberately a 6-sided structure for all these constructions. So there we have a community building, which the people create for themselves, and you've got the archway leading from the main entryway into the community building, and you've got the paths leading off to each of the separate hectares of each family unit. So I was shown this model by the Acacia plant, and that just felt like such an exciting thing to be experiencing. So what I'm proposing here is that people can create, and this whole thing is of course anti-copyright, there's no copyright involved in any of this. Any people can get together and create their own Flower of Life communities anywhere in the world. That's the idea. And just to give a little more understanding to all this, when the Vladimir Megre books came out about the Anastasia, this is exactly what has happened. The books inspire so many people. There are now Anastasia communities all over the world, and especially in Russia and the former Soviet Union, because of course Vladimir Megre, that's where he comes from. So let's go into even more detail. I do apologise about the very rudimentary nature of this last drawing, but again it's showing you the community building in the centre, the archways into the individual family units, the little petals of the Flower of Life. And within this community space of 1 hectare, well, obviously the community group that live there would have whatever they want in there, but just an idea, a communal wood store, a communal water experience, which could include things like jacuzzi, sweat lodge, sauna, hot tub, all sorts of possibilities, a space for holding workshops in, a workshop space for building and creating things in, and a performance space and festival space with a stage. So the sky's the limit, anything is possible. We're working from infinite possibility here and channeling it into creating it into reality. So this idea is something I've been meditating on and developing, and then finally I was hit by what we were all hit by not so long ago, and that's a picture of the young lad in question. That's a picture that his parents prefer you to see. We're very familiar with the picture of this child's body being washed up on a Turkish beach, but that's the picture they want us to see, and they are right, because this shows us this young lad full of life, and what happened to him is inexcusable in the 21st century. That's my bottom line. This is completely inexcusable. So it's time for us to do something about it. Now let me show you, first of all, there's image of the destruction which is taking place, which is displacing millions of people. Millions of people throughout the world are having their homes bombed, destroyed, they're being attacked by poisons, gas, all those hideous things, and they are fleeing for their lives. Okay, we all know this is going on now, we can't hide from it anymore. And here is the image of a typical refugee camp in Jordan. Now the first thing you'll notice about it is the geometry. Look at the geometry. It's rectilinear. It's rows of identical tents. The tents, of course, are completely inadequate for the people's needs, but it's the best that people have been able to do in the short term. And no imagination whatsoever in terms of the layout of this refugee camp has been put into the picture at all. So what I'm proposing is that those people who have the financial wherewithal come together with people who have the skills and people have the vision, and land is obtained, and refugees and other people in serious need are relocated to these places. And here's the next part of the key, and here it is. You'll notice on the back cover of this book 3, A Space of Love, how in one of these Anastasia communities a forest school was created. And what is so significant about this is the school was designed, built, decorated, and it doesn't tell you on the back cover, but I've read it in more detail. The entire curriculum for this school is actually co-created by the students, in other words, children. That's right. One of the things which I find very, very deeply upsetting is that the usual response is when there is a problem, like with the refugee world crisis we have at the moment, people want to impose something on them. And actually what they want more than anything else is to become directly involved in creating their own salvation for themselves. Can you imagine what it would be like to be refugees, to suddenly be taken from these hellish situations, literally these nightmares of hell, and to arrive on some land with people who would be willing to help in terms of providing their expertise and all the resources, all the physical materials that would be required, the wood, whatever it is that's required, so that the people could then go about creating their own vision of paradise on earth. So this goes back to the Anastasia books again. So finally, here I am in a position to put to you my full vision, which began at a retreat in Ireland with the Acacia plant whispering in my ear and giving me the images which has made this whole thing possible. My vision is that there are people with money, there are people with skills, and there are people with the vision to make this happen. Land will be obtained, the physical and material resources will arrive. People who have the expertise, and I'm going to mention a couple of my very good friends, Jim and Rich. Jim and Rich are eco-builders, and they can build with straw bales, they can build with straw clay, they can build with natural materials, they can create buildings with living roofs. All the expertise, all the skills are there. It's rather like a load of jigsaw puzzle pieces have suddenly, of their own accord, popped into the right places, and there's this vision, there's this image. And the vision which Vladimir Megri spoke about in his book, where he's literally the mouthpiece for the words and the voice of Anastasia, is as follows. What we are here to do, people, is to create our own vision of paradise on earth. That's what we're here to do. And imagine the people who are currently the dispossessed, the people that have been through horrors and traumas that the rest of us can't even begin to imagine. Well, just imagine if people went to the trouble and took the time and the energy and the money to provide land for these people to create their own vision of paradise on earth. This is what refugees want. They don't want to sit around receiving handouts. They want to co-create their vision of paradise on earth. And this is my vision, and this is the vision. It's called Flower of Life Communities. And I invite anyone who wishes to get involved with creating Flower of Life communities anywhere on the earth to get together with similarly minded people. We can do it. And it's a difficult thing, but I have to share this with you. So you go back in time, all the way back to 1773. Mayor Amschel Rothschild assembles 12 of his most influential friends and convinces them that if they all pool their resources together, they can rule the world. This meeting takes place in Frankfurt, Germany. Rothschild also informs his friends that he has found the perfect candidate, an individual of incredible intellect and ingenuity to lead the organisation he has planned. Adam Weishaupt, if that's the right way to pronounce it. Now, I've been saying this for a long time. The Illuminati, in the most bizarre way, are showing us the way. Because if a group of people can get together and turn the world into a hell cesspool of many millions of people being dispossessed, just imagine what will happen if a small group of people get together in one place and another small group of people get together in another place and turn the vision of creating a paradise on earth using this model of sacred geometry, which is the flower of life community as the model, and to understand that the economic maths does work out. It is possible for people to sustain themselves in this way, and in fact what people will be doing that take this step is they'll be moving into what was called Vedic civilization. Vedic civilization is when people used to live like this, in the individual holdings, having their own sovereignty. And this is an important point I want to explain. I have considerable experience of working with groups, working with communities and living in community. And this is what I discovered. If one person is like the landowner and all the other people living on that land, then the power issues are skewed. One person has a disproportionate amount of power. So what we need to have to make this work is the land is obtained, and then each family unit gets allocated their hectare, and their mission is very simple. It's to create their own vision of paradise on earth. And for us to be able to take this to the people who've been dispossessed is perhaps the greatest gift that we can give, and for them to become empowered in their own right and to have the opportunity to create their own vision of paradise on earth. Can you imagine how wonderful they're going to feel when they get the building materials and they start building their own homes? And the schools, there are actually schools that have been built and run and operate by children. It just goes to show that we can have this imagination that people need to be helped. Actually, mostly we need to give them the opportunity to help themselves. If a small group of people can get together to attempt to rule the world, which is fundamentally and ultimately doomed to failure, imagine what will happen if a group of people get together to create paradise on earth. That's the vision. And I'm inviting those people who have financial resources, who are inspired by this vision, to get in touch. Let's see what we can do to create paradise on earth. Thank you very much.
Ugin dia apur dia